The pastor that was there was very patient with me because I'm quite outspoken and I can argue and debate and everything else, and I thought I was right on many issues, and so. But he was patient because I had to change my views of abortion, because I thought abortion on demand was a right of every person, you know. And I had to change my view on evolution because I was an evolutionist. And I had to change my view on drinking and gambling and just about everything. Okay? I had to make a complete turnaround. And so he was patient with me, and we sat at the kitchen table with me, and we talked. And he never got angry at me and everything else. Then one day I said to him, and I said, you know, I'm a Mason too. And I began to sell masonry to him, just like I did to everybody else for 28 years. I'll tell him how good the Masonic Lodge is, that it's a nice brotherhood, that it's a nice fraternity of men, that is compatible with historic Christianity, that how much good works it does through the Shriners and the Shriners Hospice and everything else and all that kind of stuff. And you can't fault them for that. They do a lot of good. You know. And he didn't lay a guilt trip on me. He didn't say, well, you know, you shouldn't be a Mason. And I'm glad he didn't, because I'll tell you something, that if he would have, I probably would have said goodbye. Because most Masons, if you question the Masonic order, they do get angry at you. Or they shut up, clam up. Okay. And I probably would have done the same thing. And the reason for that is this, I'll tell you why. Because Masonry feeds a man's pride. The organization is such that it feeds your pride to the hilt. Okay? And so, he was careful. And I'm glad he was. But he said one thing to me. He looked at me in a kind of usual way, and he said, Dave, he said, you know, if I were you, I would really take a look at it. And that's all he told me. This was about the 21st of November, 1984. 3 weeks after this, I'm working on a Hutterite colony. I have a very unusual dental practice. I'm the only dentist in Alberta licensed to operate a private mobile clinic. Okay. I'm working under a special dispensation by the Dental Association because there's no provision within the Dental Act for a private mobile clinic. Okay. There's provisions from a private mobile if you're working for the federal government, the provincial government, or a health unit. But if you're private, there's no provisions. So they extend the privilege to me on a yearly basis, renewable annually. Okay? And I'm on this Hutterite colony. And I'm talking with a German school teacher. If you know anything about Hutterite colonies, they all have a German school teacher. And we start talking about organizations, and I tell him that I'm a Mason, and I'm selling masonry again to him, selling masonry to a Hutterite. That's going some. That's like selling a deep freeze to an Eskimo. But anyway, I'm telling him about that I'm a Mason and how good the organization is, everything else. And he says to me, he says, you know, he says, I have a little book that you should read. And I said, fine, okay. So after I had finished having coffee with him, and as I was leaving the house, he gave me this little book to read. And the title of the book is Heresies Exposed by Irving. I think written about 1925. It's not a big book. It has about 17 chapters. One chapter for each organization that does not line up with historic Christianity. And one of those chapters is on Freemasonry. So I goes down, and my wife and I stay on the Hutterite colony when we work there. We're probably the only people, only man and wife that ever stay in a Hutterite colony. Okay, off the colonies. I mean, that's none. And we usually stay with the pastor and his wife, and they're usually elderly or older, and there's no children around, so it's quiet. And so I start reading this book at night. But the chapter on Freemasonry I read 3 times. read it over and again and over again and over again, and I thought to myself, man, if this guy is right, then I'm serving two masters. I just accepted a new master, the Lord Jesus Christ, 3 weeks ago, and if this book is right, I'm serving two masters. So I started to think, what am I going to do? So I start looking for Masonic books, because the books, there is a Masonic library in a lodge, okay? But nobody looks at those books. And the reason for that is that you're kept so busy performing rituals over and over and over again at their meetings and initiating new members and examining new members and that kind of stuff, that you do not really partake into the real teachings of Freemasonry. About a week after that, I get a call from a friend of mine who was in the Christian Research Institute, Dean Crosley. Jim, you know him.
Mm-hmm.
And he says to me on the telephone, I found two encyclopedias, a 2-volume encyclopedia on Freemasonry in a second-hand bookstore. I said, buy them right now. Don't let them go. So he purchased those two. And those were the first real books that I had received on Freemasonry, and I'll tell you which ones they are. These 2 volumes. If you want to find out anything about Freemasonry, I think about everything that you would want to know about Freemasonry is within these 2 volumes. A couple of weeks after that, I get another phone call from a man from Calgary. And by then I'd moved from Carbon. And I opened up a dental office in Black Diamond, and I was going to work the office and the colonies together. So many days in the office, so many days on the field, okay? I get a call from this man. He says he's a janitor at a community club in Calgary, and that he's got a book for me. I figured, gee, but I don't even know this guy. I've never met the guy before. And he said, I found a book that you would need. He said, it's called Morals and Dogma by Albert Pike. So I said, oh, gee, I do need that book, thank you. He says, this was Tuesday, and I said, I'll be in Calgary on Friday, and I'll stop over and pick it up from you and pay you for it. No, he says, no way. He says, this book is so evil that I won't have it in my house. I forgot to tell him to put it in the trunk of his car. You know what I mean? But that was his opinion. Okay? So I said, why? You know, what's evil about it? Well, he says, I'll tell you. I used to belong to the Rosicrucians, and there is so much similarity between what's in that book written about Freemasonry and what I used to be in that I don't want in my house. I'll drive it out to you tonight, 35 miles. I said, okay. So I meet him on the street in Black Diamond, and he passes over this book to me, and I give him the $20 that he paid for it. He found it in the second-hand bookstore. I got 3 books now. I always did have the Masonic Bible, okay, because that's given to everyone upon the 3rd degree initiation. Now, the Masonic Bible, this is a King James Version. It's a regular Bible, okay? And I'll speak to you about it later, okay? So I have that one. Now I've got 4 versions given to me by ex-Masons or by widows and Masons. So then, I started looking into bookstores. I thought, well, there's got to be more literature on Freemasonry than that. By now, I quit. I was uneasy going to a Masonic lodge. I was beginning to think that I would leave this whole thing. And so I went to every New Age bookstore in Calgary and Edmonton. And I started looking. And if you go into these New Age bookstores,